maturity that she's not like a little 8-year-old.
Right, here we go.
See. Oldham!
We are going.
Hey, here I am.
Flew in at the last moment. Just zoom, just slid right into the chair.
We are, ladies and gentlemen, suddenly live like you can't believe it.
Oh, well, if Oldham gets to go live, I do too.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Do I need to hide my
in.
face?
Oh, every Monday night, unexplainable mishaps all the way into the show. 3D Politics live every Monday night right here at approximately 7 to approximately whenever we're done. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I am Tommy McKay, your verbal Viking, bringing you David Van, our resident expert on Oklahoma state government and advocate for mental health concerns, and also creator and editor of Sooner Politics. And you can find him over at soonerpolitics.org. I had to get that recording going. And also, of course, as usual, David Oldham, the founder of Constitutional Grounds, an organization teaching and promoting liberty and the restoration of constitutional governance. You can find him right there at constitutionalgrounds.com. And of course, me, Tommy McKay, on Facebook, at Tommy McKay on Twitter, and at Tommy McKay on SoundCloud, which is all my favorite stuff because you don't look at me, you just hear me there. So how are you boys doing today?
Wow, it's been a Monday for me. Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't. This is, certain things go bad, certain things go good. I don't know why I don't need my other headphones. There's something weird going on, but it's working out. So tonight, Oldham, man, I'm glad to have you all of a sudden. Pow, there he is, coming in from nowhere. Tonight, we got breaking news from Van and a couple of them about William Barr and the electoral skullduggery. I want to talk about a mask fight that happened in Seattle. Hopefully, Oldham, you can console me with your knowledge of electors. And well, I got to say, I am as depressed tonight as I was elated 4 years ago when David Oldham said, "Oh, don't worry about it." So now I'm worried about it.
You mentioned a mask fight. I just came from Bixby where they're trying to do a resolution, or possibly do a resolution for
nice. We'll add that in. And I'm teasing next year. I'm going to bring up a thing about the nonprofit. I'm the only guy that doesn't like nonprofits. I'm a natural contrarian. And Van was telling me I'm a bad person. He didn't say that. He's like, yeah, that's like being mean to your grandmother. And then also we're going to teach you guys what an ACE is. It's an ACE. And that's the one I want to get into later, but that's in depth. So Oldham, Van, I'm glad to have you. Thanks again for showing up. And tell us, Van, breaking news, William Barr.
Yeah, this hit during the 4 to 5 hour. I was watching Steve Bannon, does his War Room morning show and an afternoon. And he was right in the middle of the show. He says, "Hey, wait a minute, did you get a text just now from a tweet? Is this real?" And they all looked at theirs. Yeah, Trump just announced that Bill Barr just resigned. Attorney General resigned. Wow. So, things hadn't been so rosy here the last month or so. But before that, a lot of people have been really pleased with Barr, especially with his handling of the Mueller report, cleaning that up. And I thought that was good. But again, and Oldham's going to get into this too, the pathway to the inauguration day later in the show. Things could be really dicey here in the next 40 days or so.
So William Barr has resigned in the last, couple of hours ago.
Yeah.
And now that we see where the real chips fall, you see that William Barr is kind of, again, it's hard. I got taken in by some of the media coverage, so I don't know the whole story, but it seems as though even though he was strong on Mueller, now it looks like the Mueller thing was a an easy catch. This is where you really need somebody with a spine that'll stand up for the justice system. You know what I mean? Because Mueller was just a drop in the bucket as far as that was an easy one. There was nothing there. Here's where you really got to decide something. So what about the electoral skullduggery?
Oh, let me just finish up.
You got
Deputy
more on
Attorney
Barr?
General, just a second. Deputy Attorney General Jeff Rosen will be acting Attorney General. I just wanted to, for those for whom that's important, but there's going to be a lot of things moving fast.
Oldham?
Yeah, for those who don't know, Jeff Rosen is out of the frying pan into the fire kind of dude. He is more of the same, actually worse than Barr. So he's part of the cabal, the swampish mess that infected everything. In fact, I think he was part of the Russia collusion folks. So there's nothing really changing. We need to keep pushing to have more and better. At this point, we'll see what Trump is thinking in between now and January 20th. Here very shortly, we'll find out. But beware of Jeff Rosen.
And I want to say a former federal prosecutor, one of Reagan's appointees, called me the other day. I just asked him, I said, look, everybody talked after the Mueller report came out. Okay, you got bad apples at the top, but so many were quick to say, oh, this is not to besmirch the field office, the rank and file FBI agents. But I tell you, in the wake of this election and the dead silence and unwilling to even investigate anything, I asked this former federal prosecutor, I said, look, are the field offices tainted? He said, Dave, he said, that is no different than it was when J. Edgar Hoover ran it. The FBI wants to have dirt on anyone in power because they can control them that way. They don't necessarily prosecute. Sometimes their own initiatives, their own designs, their own ambitions, they put ahead of justice. And in fact, this federal prosecutor says, look, they tried to sabotage my appointment by Reagan. And he said, if I hadn't recorded covertly a conversation I had with an agent who came sent to interview me and then lie about me, he said, I would not probably wouldn't be a federal prosecutor. And that's how just dirty they play. So I think the FBI right now, and if the Justice Department doesn't clean them up, they won't be cleaned up.
I remember joking back in the day when I would see an AT&T, or a Southwestern Bell vehicle, I would say, oh, the police, and the kids would all laugh. And then if you would suggest that the Southwestern Bell vehicle and the man in there was the police, people would say you're a conspiracy theorist. And then if you ever listened to G. Gordon Liddy back in the day, he would as an FBI agent, I dressed up as a Southwestern Bell AT&T guy. It's like literally, it's what they do. Okay, it's literally what they do. So it's
yeah. And by the way, I can out this guy now. The fella that called me was our own Gary Richardson. Gary, was he? In fact, one of the first cases he took on was sending the Speaker of the House of Oklahoma to prison for election fraud in Muskogee. And I don't believe he had any help from the FBI on that. And that was in 82. And so, this is the kind of thing. And so Gary told these stories on the steps of the state capitol Saturday at a Stop the Steal rally. So
you always know when you're going to get help from law enforcement, and that's when they say police need your help in finding or locating. That's when.
Well, what was it? What was it that Reagan said? The 5 most dangerous words you'll ever hear is "We're from the government. We're here to help." It's the 9 most dangerous words.
Well, that's cost overrun, David.
There you go. There you go. So it looks like last year feels like last year. 4 years ago, last year, I talked to Oldham. The only person I'd ever met that was actually an elector in the electoral college. And before that point, I thought that was like unicorns and they were mythical. There's not really a college, you know. Oh, come on, you know, people. Oh. I thought there were robots or something. I didn't believe they were. I thought it was it would be like the Illuminati probably decides something like that. And I found out David Oldham is the Illuminati. Oh my gosh, look at that. David Oldham was the guy that decided 4 years ago.
Is my lizard showing?
With that triangular third eye. That's the one that got me. Like in the back of the head there. So but you know, so I called him, I think at one point 4 years ago, and I said, you know, should I panic or anything? I says, Tom, you panic all the time. What are you asking me for? No, but the point is, Oldham was like, look, I'm gonna go do my duty. I'm a sworn elector. I said I was gonna do a thing. I did a deal, it came out the way. I'm gonna go up there, and that night I had people call me and say, oh, he might not be installed and da da da. And I was like, don't worry about it. I know a guy. No, but I mean, I didn't know how the process worked. And so now we're at the point where we've got electors that are sworn in. But Van, you were telling me about the breaking news about Pence and what I call skullduggery. You know, what's the deal with the breaking news on that? It could be rumor.
I didn't really have, it's not so much breaking news as much as it's a conspiracy theory that what the Trump legal team probably is going to do now is build as big a narrative for widespread corruption that might give a political cover for the one person who counts the votes when they get to the Capitol in DC. And that is the vice president who serves as president of the Senate. The Constitution alone gives him the right to count the votes.
Oldham?
That's correct. That's correct. In both Article 2 and the 12th Amendment.
Yeah.
Now, often the vice president will delegate that to the Senate pro tempore or the guy who acts in his stead, which would be McConnell. But in this particular case, we may see Vice President Pence doing all of the counting and so forth because of what David's going to get into next.
And in the words of the infamous Randy Quaid, karma's a bitch, folks.
Well, the reason that this becomes somewhat important, I think this is the news or what some people are talking about, is that what you're going to see is senators and representatives, at least one of each, who will dispute the seating of certain electoral delegations, or dispute their vote cast. And Mo Brooks has talked about it. I think I mentioned it last week. But what you see is that both houses will then have to consider the measure, okay, and consider the disputations and do them individually or collectively, as that various houses see fit. But what will happen is they will then dispute it. They will come back at an impasse. Each house is going to probably go its own way. If everybody acts according to plan, although there's some question as to whether the Senate will actually go Republican or whether they'll just allow the whole thing to happen. But then that leaves everything in a dispute because you have the House says one thing, the Senate says another. How does the tie get cast?
Okay, wait a minute,
and
David.
How we get into what gets all theoretical.
David, how do you determine where the House is? Because they're only allowed to give one vote, and that is each delegation of a state gets one vote.
Not in a disputation.
Pardon me?
Not in a disputation. When a situation like this happens, that would be it would be ruled by statutes. and you have to go into, I believe it's USC 15, and some other places to find the answers. I haven't found all the answers myself, but what I have been reading other people talk about is just what I laid out from Article 15 of the U.S. Code. What it talks about is that the each house would decide. Now, within the statute, it may say that everybody decides on an even basis. I mean,
Okay.
everybody gets
Okay, but
a vote as a House
you're
member.
going too far ahead here.
Okay.
And I can't even remember all the points I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
But first of all, let's establish this. Who officially has a right to declare the count at Congress? Is it not the president of the Senate alone?
No, he counts. He
Hey,
counts.
before you answer that, let me
go ahead.
reset this. I hope you can remember the question. It's been
Yeah.
18 minutes or something before we rolled in this. I know that whoever counts those electoral votes, whether if McConnell, he may do the dirty work, but if Pence has to count those votes, it's kind of like WVWJC. What votes would Jesus count is the question right there. But hey, as we get back into this, Tommy McKay right here, your fine host with David Vann, our resident expert on Oklahoma politics over there at SoonerPolitics.org, and David Oldham, founder of Constitutional Grounds at constitutionalgrounds.com. And we were just asking and getting into the weeds of a fantastic question, something about electors, I'm sure. What was it?
Yeah, because we went through the language. So it's specifically, let's set it up that we got a joint session and the man at the gavel
Actually, no, you don't have a joint session. What you have is you have a count in which everyone from Congress can, if they wish, witness.
Okay.
So I guess in a sense it's a joint session, but it's not specifically called a joint session. So
okay, but I want to stick with just the constitutional wording on this without filling in the gaps. Is that because it did say in the presence of the entire House and Senate, he announces the vote, right? Which means he has to add it up. Now, what we found out today, Pennsylvania has two competing electoral college vote reports because the legislature is acknowledging the Republican electors and certified them and sent that on. Now, Secretary of State's not. So that's a scenario. If you have that in Georgia and just one other state, all of a sudden, Biden doesn't have it. Any three of those 6 states.
Well, the question is which is the legal, the legally cast electoral vote, and that now is in big question. I cite the 14th Amendment and say they can't be sat because of Article 2 and Article 1, the election, certainly in Pennsylvania, just doesn't even rate as lawful. So therefore it's got to be shut. But there is a legal precedent, and we get into legal precedent, and this legal thought that's going around that the state legislatures can just send in a slate. They can do that any number of ways. They can declare it themselves, which is the thought process, or they can say, no, look, really our election came out differently than was reported.
Okay, so let's stop here. Let me pick on this issue. If the vice president, Mike Pence, were to say, I'm not going, there are certain state delegations that are in dispute, and because those states have not resolved their dispute, they are remaining out of the count.
Correct.
And that, to me, that's a plausible deal.
That may just happen.
That says, Democrats, you dragged your feet, you stalled, and you killed your own opportunity by stalling.
Right. I agree.
I gotta say, I mean, as brilliant as I am, and I know you guys think that, I'm lost. I don't really know. I really don't understand where you're. Well, I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, basically, what's going to happen is this ain't over until January 6th. There's going to be fireworks on January 6th, and we will see how this all comes down.
So there's not going to be fireworks when they go see electors. The electors are going to be seated. The vote's going to happen. Then the fireworks happens later.
Well, first of all, the electors already adjourned. That's done. Okay. And it's just whether their credentials are accepted by Congress.
Right.
And namely the Vice President of the United States.
Okay.
Because nobody else has the authority except him to tabulate and announce the count. And here's the reason, folks. And I believe our founders envisioned this when they said, look, we're going to give the electors a chance. And if they can't do this in a timely manner, then we're going to go to the congressional delegations and they're going to decide it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's plausible. And it makes sense to me.
It's very plausible. And actually it should happen because these illegal elections should be set aside. There gets nobody to 270. Nobody's at 270. And all of a sudden we are now looking at Congress making the decision, and we've talked about that at length. So Congress makes the decision, and you've got a Republican president all over again.
Yeah.
The big thing is this isn't over. That's the key thing to remember. Now, how much everybody's going to fight, and I mean the news. I mean, it is incredible, the news and how they're doing. I gave an interview today for Channel 8, and their story came up on that led up to the interview, which was all of one sentence long.
Sure, that's a soundbite of their choice.
But the thing they said was, I mean, just listen to the language they used.
Yeah.
The descriptive language. It was all editorial. It had nothing to do with news.
Yep.
It was all about Trump and his loser ploys to try to do things, that kind of language, versus Joe Biden and Trump trying to steal the election from him. And it's like, this is ridiculous. And but that's what's going to keep going until January 6th. But this isn't over because
this is amazing. Oldham, every 4 years, Oldham cheers me up. He just said it's not over, which is like now I can sleep tonight again. And KTUL Channel 8, they had one of their typical fear mongering stories about the United States is #1 in COVID, some sort of death, obscure death, and so I tweeted out that Pennsylvania is #1 in the world for corrupt elections. There you go. Run that headline. Is the same thing.
That's right.
That's great.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah. So it's not over. We'll see how people fight this and where it all ends up, but keep watching because there's more to come. And like I've been saying, this is going to keep going, and there's more that can happen.
I've got to say, I think that, I can I think especially under duress, I continue to gain more respect for the founding fathers and the system they built.
Yeah.
This puppy can fly and fly well. And I know to a certain degree, it's based on the Roman structure. And I think, one of the reasons Rome went for 500 years and we're about to flounder at 250, we just don't have enough brutal, force around here. It's amazing. The Supreme Court is like the Pharisees are like, well, we don't want to, not sure how we feel about that. So we don't want to decide on it. This is literally a dispute among states, and by passing on the Texas case, the Supreme Court has led to insurrection. It's like it would have even been better for them to take the case and tell everybody you lost. Then we would at least, well, look at that, we lost the game. We didn't like it, but by not taking the case, they incite riot. It's insane. People talking about secession. I said, you're free to secede from the Union up until 11 on weekdays, but you can secede all the way till midnight on Fridays and Saturdays.
Yep.
Well, the biggest problem is, for those secessionists who might happen to watch us, the biggest problem is our own Constitution doesn't allow us to do it. So we'd have to do it against the law unless we change our Constitution first. And then the other thing is our Oklahoma Constitution isn't as good as the U.S. Constitution for protection of rights and so forth.
Right.
A whole
So
bunch of things.
we have to amend that before we could possibly secede, because otherwise we're going out of the frying pan into the fire. I mean, it's asinine, some of the things that are going on in some of these people's minds, but it is good that people are now talking about it, because maybe we can get them to do some civil disobedience and do some things that will bring about some proper reform, because that's really what needs to happen.
So, I gotta go ahead, Van.
I got another wrench to throw into that one, Oldham.
With that,
It's if Oklahoma succeeded, the tribes would take back eastern Oklahoma, and the federal government of the United States would back them up.
very likely. That's
Yeah.
very likely. In fact, that
Yeah.
that could be a reason for, with Oklahoma seceding, that could be cause for any government calling itself the United States with treaties with the Indians.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to renegotiate treaties with the Indians with a potential seceded state in order to be able to do that before you ever left, which would, kind of defeat the purpose of doing anything, surreptitiously.
I'm telling you, this Supreme Court ruling, the McGirt case, sets it up that way, that the tribes get to be the kingmaker in that decision.
Yeah, they do.
Which is fine, except for the tribes are under the thumb of the federal government, which equals means the federal government's the kingmaker. There's no tribe does anything. Are you kidding me? They wind up their phone and go, "Hello, drugstore." Are you kidding me?
I don't think that
it took us like 4 years to get a driver's.
Let me tell you, if the tribes wanted to secede and go with Texas and the rest of Oklahoma, it would be horrible optics for the federal government to come in and try to take over Indian land again.
Well, it would. It would also be tough on the Indians unless the Indians made sure they had a good deal, because all treaties,
hey, we always make sure we have a good
deal. Government check, is that what you're talking about?
Everything that happened in the past would be gone, because they would be seceding and breaking the treaties themselves. So
sure. Then so would the rest of Oklahoma be breaking a treaty?
What's that?
The rest of Oklahoma would be breaking a treaty.
I can't believe Hoskins Jr., my loving chief, is all worried about icons and mascots, right?
Yeah.
And yet he'll allow the name of the entire tribe to be Cherokee, which is a mispronunciation of the Cherokee language, Tsalagi. It's not Cherokee, it's Tsalagi. I probably don't even say it right, but if you're going to be so symbolically worried about it, let's go ahead and change the name of the Tsalagi village.
No, just before we get off this language thing, you did hear that the Cherokees are so concerned about losing the Cherokee language.
Yeah,
they're now going to be paying people to go 40 hours a week to learn the language, right? Mm-hmm. But the teachers, they're going to put at the top of the list for the new COVID vax. And so I don't know what you feel about that, but
I want to say about that. Remember,
I'm pissed about it. I don't even know what it is.
Tom, remember how political correct we got in the 80s? It was no longer Bombay, it was Mumbai. It was no longer Peking, it was Beijing. But yet we
no longer Leningrad, it was Stalingrad. Right?
That's a whole other thing. Now it's St. Petersburg like it belonged. But my point had to do with proper pronunciation of names in a different language.
Oh yeah,
Such as-
Qatar and yeah.
well,
Well,
particularly Mumbai and Beijing, which were Bombay and
they
Peking.
really needed Bombay to change because Bombay had a bad image. Mumbai, that was,
Yeah, but
heaven on earth.
my point is they show enough respect to these foreign countries who aren't necessarily our friends, but yet they still won't call Cherokee by their official name.
Right.
Well, it's just such a bunch of hype. Furthermore, and they keep wiping. The Cleveland Indians is gone now. The Washington Redskins is gone now. They're going to take away this and that. And that is my history.
Right.
When I hear Cleveland Indians, I think Indians. Yeah, my people.
I know it.
Live here.
But Greenwood Avenue is still named after the biggest slave owner.
Yeah. Can I still paint something in front of my house over there, David?
That Indian slave owner.
Damn it! Yeah, I never owned.
Yeah, literally best friend of Jefferson Davis, president of the Confederacy, and the blacks are still proud of that name, Greenwood.
Oh my God!
Go figure. Some people,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy out there.
How we get off on rabbit trails?
It's my fault. It's always my fault. You're watching 3D Politics every Monday night, and if you're not, you're watching it later some other time. We always come on about 7 with David Vann, resident expert, Oklahoma State government from Soonerpolitics.org, and David Oldham, founder of Constitutional Grounds over there at constitutionalgrounds.com. Me, I'm your ordinary verbal Viking, your perspicuous pirate and plunderer of conversations, saying things that nobody else can say, and thank God I do.
I thought I was a pirate.
You are a pirate, my friend. So I want to move on, though. I do really want to move on to this disabled Marine veteran. He was attacked after a confrontation with men for not wearing masks. This is out of KIRO-TV, Fox 23, Seattle. Jared
Carol. Yeah, they're good, folks.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And this is from December 11th. Seattle, a disabled Marine veteran was attacked after a confrontation with 2 men at a grocery store who were not wearing masks. Daniel Troublefield, 43, was at the Ocean Shores IGA Sunday night when he made a comment to another shopper for not wearing a mask. KIRO-TV reported it's something he had never done before, but he felt compelled because he and his wife had pre-existing conditions. What other kind of condition is there? A spontaneous condition? Shut up. He had a tense interaction with 2 men inside the store, but Troublefield thought that's where it ended. As he left the store and walked to his car, the men yelled and berated him from a distance, which sounds safe to me. To my regret, I walked up to the car, he said. I was trying to explain. It's science. You should be wearing a mask because you're endangering me and everyone else in the store by not having a mask on, Troublefield said. The gentleman tapped on my chest and flipped up his hat, and that's when they both got out of the car. It's fighting time. The men beat Troublefield for nearly 20 seconds, which is an eternity if you're Troublefield. He's a disabled Marine veteran. He said he never threw a punch. You call that a Marine? I'm sorry. He suffered bruises to his face. He suffered bruises to his ugly face. And I added the ugly. He suffered bruises to his face. And I have no respect for this guy. He suffered bruises to his face and I'll get through this, and his body, his nose was fractured and he had to get stitches. I curled up in the fetal position. I was ready to die, Troublefield said. Ocean Shores police are searching for the people. Troublefield said it was the first and last time he will confront someone about not wearing the mask. Now, I know that was a lot of work, but I'm going to share my response to this. All right. I'll try to share this here if I can. So here is my summary, and it's got a little word mouth source material at the bottom and a question for review. But basically, there's 4 things going on here. Daniel Troublefield, media shill, I call him, Ocean Shore, Seattle, progressive mentality. I feel like that old show, felt compelled to make a comment at a shopper for not wearing a mask. Impulsive thoughts is what he had. It's something he'd never done before, but he and his wife have pre-existing conditions, Troublefield said. Compulsive behavior. To my regret, I walked up to the car, Troublefield said. Negative reaction. I curled up in the fetal position and just ready to die, Troublefield said. Conclusion. It was the first and last time he will confront someone about not wearing a mask. So here's your questions for review. What lessons did Troublefield learn while attempting to control the behavior of others? And here's your word math source material. Progressive mentality plus impulsive thoughts equals compulsive behavior and negative reactions. Okay. Sorry, that's the fun I have. But I mean, here's the deal. The problem here is the government has assumed a part ownership of the means of production, i.e., the grocery store and the restaurants. And what they've asked the grocery store owners, managers, and restaurant owners, managers to do is be government, because the government said, "Oh, you restaurant people are now going to be government, and we're going to be restaurant." See, the government's now restaurant and grocery store owner, part owner. And so now grocery store actual owner is part government, and now restaurant patron feels as though he is compelled to be part government. Gentlemen, say you.
You're absolutely correct. The only thing that I would say is that they are depriving us of our liberty, our right to be restaurant owners or whatever business, and that's what we need to attack. If we attack that, then they have no ability to force us into acting as agents for them.
But through, like you've said before, Van, the license, the restaurant owner has a license. Mm-hmm. If they do not carry out the pretense of the government, then they're going to lose their license. So now what do you do?
Yeah,
we have to push back against licensing, and we need to have business owners burning their licenses. We need to
like
have
a bra.
Like bras, we need to have mass
or draft
burning,
cards,
mass burning parties. I think at courthouses, not just at the city hall, at the courthouse, where you're taking it directly to the judiciary who's upholding all of this garbage and all of this tyranny. We need to point to them, because they are the ones who are supposed to be giving us redress, but they're out there saying, "Oh, we have a duty to
and remember, all of this power was ceded over to the health department, and I'm telling you, they are about as corrupt as can be, and incompetent. Depends
at least incompetent. Yeah.
I mean, I've literally, for years, I ran an outfit that we had to have a health license just because we sold some baking goods in this craft store. And they'd come back, and we'd get one inspector and they'd tell us, well, you got to do this, 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 and this, and this. And if you don't have it done in 30 days, I'm writing a citation. And so we do that for the next few months, and they get a new inspector and they say, why are you doing that? You don't need to do that. No, and it's just ridiculous stuff.
Write it down. Write it down that we don't need to do that, because that's going to be used in court when the next guy comes along and tells us we do, because nothing's going to change. But that's the point, is that's where a judge is supposed to be saying, no, you don't have that authority, health department. And none of what they are doing do they have the authority to do. A department like that can't set rules that are outside of statute. Yeah. All they can do is they can maybe make recommendations, and then they can enforce, but they have to enforce actual law, and that law must be constitutional. Otherwise, they don't. And that's it. It's that simple.
I'm telling you, I listened to one of their people, the division's health department today. It was an interim study. It was medical marijuana authority. And this is the same kind of thing where, remember, as soon as we voted that in, that was 2.5 years ago, within 2 weeks, the board of directors, the health department, made a whole bunch of unconstitutional rules that went way beyond. And my friend Ron Durham, had to file suit. And
Right.
thank God that Mike Hunter, our attorney general, was in a re-election. He had to listen to the people, and he told me, he said, "You guys are going way beyond, health department, way beyond the statutes. You can't do that." And they had to yank back a whole bunch of stuff.
Well,
But
they have unintended consequences with all their safety. I could make the case that the Tulsa Health Department is starving the hungry of Tulsa. And I dare anybody who has a kitchen, go make 1,000 sandwiches and take them down to the daycare center for the homeless, and you won't be able to deliver the sandwiches to the hungry. You know why? You come from a state sanctioned licensed kitchen. So you can't feed the poor around here.
Tom, they have created a law unto themselves. And they said this on the day they passed all of those medical marijuana. They said, our commission is to protect the health of Oklahoma. Now, who gave them that? That didn't come from the legislature. The board just decided to create this model. And then they acted in the name of this model. Our commission is to protect the health. No, government, your job isn't to protect me. Your job is to protect my rights.
Your job is to represent me. You're supposed to represent me. You're not
the legislature, yeah, but not the health department.
Well, even the health department is to represent us, because remember, they work for
who do they represent us to?
They're supposed to represent that. Just like, how come the ladies can walk around showing their back fat when that's flies in the face of common decency, and yet the health department can tell us whatever they tell us otherwise? You know what I'm saying? Why don't they legislate away the back fat? I mean, I'm just saying, there's no rhyme or reason. It's arbitrary enforcement of law. Well, they allow the back fat when they want, and then they come in, they tell you, oh, you got to clean the iron skillet so it's not seasoned anymore. I mean, it's just like ridiculous. Okay. Plus, they're not even elected. Unelected bureaucrats with a lisp. I'm telling you, it's insane. There's nothing more unreasonable than the Tulsa Health Department, except for maybe Deborah Gist, besides those two. Picking on anybody that triggers me.
Well,
the Tulsa Health Department is starving the people. Tulsa, put this out there. The Tulsa Health Department is starving Tulsans.
They are definitely starving Tulsans and people of other cities, because the Tulsa Health Department is the county health department as well.
So who runs the Tulsa County Health Department? What's his name? Say it.
Bruce the guy with the list.
Is starving children. There you go. I said it.
Yeah.
I didn't just say it. I screamed.
And I want to say the legislature is biting away at some of their overregulation. We now have a law that the legislature put in a couple of years ago for cottage industries, baking goods and stuff, to where none of those health department things apply until your annual sales reach a certain amount. So we're
it's incentive to keep your sales low. Keep your baking powder dry is what I say.
There you go. There you go.
Well, but here's the thing, and here's the rub for all of the potential listeners who want to pick us apart. The health department has a place whereby they should be finding out if people are harming others because they're being unhealthy. They're selling salmonella sandwiches.
Represent somebody who had a complaint. Yes, represent us. Yes.
But then what you have to do is you have to then research it. You have to go through and investigate it. You can't just go and say, "Oh, we got a complaint, you're shut down," which is often what they will do now. Or if they even bother with the complaints, they just go through and we're here for an inspection, let us in. Well, the other night we had a meeting, and this meeting we were going to have Broken Arrow city councilors come and speak. And so, all the mass Karens and stuff like that found out about it. They called the city count or the health department, who called the church where the meeting was going to be taking place, and told the church that they had to have everything in line for the people at the meeting, or else, and there may be a an inspector there at the meeting. So the meeting host had to get some things in order. Again, nobody ended up wearing masks or anything like that, but she had, hand sanitizer, had to spray down the tables, had to have masks and all of
I
that
still
stuff.
got to ruin the party. Yeah.
And then what I did was I stood outside, and we turned it into a private event so nobody could come in unless they were invited, and that was ultimately going to be me. And I would decide who was coming in, who wasn't, and if there was a health inspector, they were going to have to get a warrant.
Yeah.
Now they don't like that because they think they have authority to go anywhere because they're health inspector.
Now,
So they were going
Tom,
to find out very quickly what the Fourth and Fifth Amendment
now
is.
this was all happening late last Thursday afternoon.
Correct.
In fact, I was over at Oldham's new spacious luxury studio when we were doing it, and I'm
Like a
listening.
weather center to me.
And I'm listening to on the way home, Governor Stitt is doing a press conference with the health department state interim commissioner. So anyway, Stitt specifically laid out all these things he wanted to get in greater detail, but then he said they do not apply to churches. They do not apply to churches. And where was this meeting at Thursday night, Oldham? It was at a church. It was at a church. And they still had that local health department still had that church intimidated into crying like, oh my God, we can't do anything that's going to break the law.
I mean, even though I got cheered up a minute ago from Oldham, I think we're crushed already. I think the way this is military now. We literally need strategy and tactic. We're going to have a fake meeting of 50 or 60 people somewhere so it draws all the attention over to the decoy, and then have like 6 people go out and have a dinner somewhere with a restaurant that has no license.
Okay. So
I mean, listen, we are in some deep shit. I'm sorry, but I mean, we didn't even show up at Easter when they said we couldn't have Easter.
Okay.
And everybody's like, well, okay, 15 days to flatten the curve. Yeah, but that was 45 days in. It's like
Tom,
wait,
let's
this is insane.
At the right time, we need to segue into a story I got straight from Frank Urbanek, who's suing the governor, and he sent me the letter he sent to the governor the same time that the governor was meeting with the health department. This is all Thursday afternoon. And you wouldn't believe the kind of tyranny happening with Abel, our liquor inspectors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've shared with you how I've shared with you how, I can't go buy a beer or enter and use the restroom at my favorite, soccer place / watering hole. And it's all because of the health department and Able Commission. Both of them, because they have licenses for both, and it's all about that all of this is coming down.
Hey, the Able Commission, I'm guessing through my clairvoyance brilliance that the Timothy Harper story has something to do with the Able Commission, because they were saying blah 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 Twin Peaks, and we all know what those are.
Yeah.
Trying to take the edge off.
They still around?
Both
They've
of
gone
them.
out of Tulsa.
Both of those Twin Peaks are around all over the place. And the thing is, though, they sell alcohol. And so then the Able Commission and some sort of law having to do with firearms. So it's not just blah, blah, blah. Like, again, it's not just simple licensing. It's convoluted and compounded by, that's an alcohol selling place. Well, that's different than any other place, because we think of your money that comes in as your regular money, and then you get your bonus, but that's other money.
Yeah, and at some point we need to have Adrian Otap in to give a report on that. He studied that issue quite a bit,
Good, yeah.
especially when Harper got involved in it, and he'll have a lot to say.
Hey, and speaking of which, let's see if anybody, we need guests on here to talk about these issues. Deborah Wimpy, somebody was talking to me about that. Person needs to be on here. Christine Gillespie. Jeff Rogers was the guy that owns 2 or 3 bars or something, the Pink Parrot, which sounds really interesting. He was denied all sorts of opportunity to do business. And I can't find, I had a hard time finding these businesses and information to get these people on the show. So,
well, let me tell you what Frank did. He sent me the letter. It's actually a cease and desist
I invited
letter.
Frank, and no response. I said,
so hey, listen, it's all about billable hours with
plus it was me.
It's all about those billable hours. But no, Frank has got a ton of clients he's serving right now, and they are trying to stop this. They've got a lawsuit against the governor and against the Able, because Able is making up a bunch of punishments and a bunch of things where there's no statute, no approved emergency rules. You know how you know how agency rules go. They have to announce them. They have to have a public feedback time. Then they vote on them. They send them to the governor. And only if the governor signs that specific emergency rule with a specific punishment listed, only then can they enforce an actual fine or other.
But it also has to be in statute. They can't make up their own stuff. It doesn't matter that they do.
All this got convoluted when you have an insurrection through a mayor like Bynum, who makes his own municipality rules that undermine the state. Well, how do you fix that?
Right. Yes, and Able is actually using 2 other rules that Frank has alluded to in the past. Remember last spring, he said that the governor seems to be ordering that we are in a state of insurrection and riot. And he was doing that until Frank called him out.
We will
and
if he keeps up.
Pardon me?
I said we will be if he keeps up.
Right. And then he actually went with the health emergency statute, which is in our statutes, whether it's constitutional. All these things need to be tested. But anyway, so that happened then. Well, now he's declaring that we're in a state of natural or man-made disaster, as though an F5 just ripped up the whole state, and he's just declaring I have powers to make rules. However, Frank said, even if that was the case, how would the hours that our liquor establishment is open have anything to do with the natural disaster?
Right.
So there's no reasonable judge who would make that leap.
Reasonable. Okay. So that's a natural state of delusion.
You got to qualify. You can't say a judge anymore. You got to say a reasonable judge. Yes, so my point is, he said to him, look, he says, I got people with citations that say you're going to be shut down for 30 days. Now, this is with no court hearing, no due process. They're just going to order them closed.
Right.
This is tyranny, folks.
Absolute
this is tyranny.
Yep.
Thank God for people like Frank Urbanek who are stepping up and meeting a need in this state. He's one of my finalists for Citizen of the Year.
Yeah, the point is, this is what we're seeing actively lived out in New Jersey, and Connecticut, New York. There was that man from Staten Island who was carted off in handcuffs because he kept his restaurant open and he was in an orange zone, which meant he had to be closed.
See, I thought it wasn't important, but it was orange.
It was an orange.
Orange. That's impressive.
So, and therefore he had to be closed. But if he could have been, just a block or 2 away, it wasn't an orange zone. So therefore he could have been open. But this is arbitrary. And what have I been saying? What have I said for years about arbitrariness? And that was one of the points we talked about, that we had to convict the king of in our Declaration of Independence. Was his arbitrariness was something that prevented him or basically broke his covenant with the people, and
Yeah.
therefore we could have independence because he was no longer he no longer kept the agreement,
Yeah.
the Magna Carta and so forth.
Yeah, Magna Carta, yes.
And so that's why we said those things.
Yes.
And that's where we need to remember these kinds of things. When they do it now, it's just as illegal as it was in 1776. It's
Boy.
more so actually because it's expressly prohibited them these things, and it wasn't questionable, but it was a lot more. It was a lot different when you're dealing with a monarch
Yeah.
and versus elected representatives who are noticeably below us. We're the monarchs. We're the sovereigns, not monarchs.
Yeah.
We're the
I keep telling her.
democracy.
Hey,
We're the archangels.
3D Politics every Monday at 7-ish. Tommy McKay, your plundering, perspicuous Viking. David Van, resident expert, Oklahoma State politics at SoonerPolitics.org. David Oldham from Constitutional Grounds at constitutionalgrounds.com. Don't forget to tune in every Monday night. We go and go and go. I still want to talk about the process. Oldham, your experience as an elector it really is something. I think, again, I mean, I really, no joke, I thought it was a mythical thing. I thought the electoral college was mythical. I thought, yeah, and they say that so they can just change it at the last second into anything they want, which may still be true, and it'll just work for me. But tell us, I mean, kind of walk us through. So today, the college they went and then cast their votes. Is that how you would say it?
Yeah. So what you have is everybody elected to be an elector in all of the 50 states went to their respective state capitals and cast their votes. And it was the people elected within the state. So those who were certified within the various states. So Pennsylvania sent a Democrat slate. Michigan sent a Democrat slate, and so forth, because that's what they certified as their electoral count.
Tom, I need to share a screen.
Okay.
And
Set
so
that up now.
these various electors of whatever ilk, whatever political party won.
Are you able to share, Van?
Nope.
These people are the ones that went to their respective state capitals and cast their vote. And every state does it a little bit differently. Almost all have a ceremony of some kind.
Here we are, folks.
All right. Thank you, Van.
Okay.
These were the state
cool.
electors from Oklahoma 4 years ago. You can see David Oldham there. Right inside him, State Representative Bobby Cleveland. Way over on the far, I guess, my left is Mark Thomas. You've got
He's the tallest one in the picture.
Yeah, Teresa Turner. She's a school teacher from out in Cherokee County. You got George Weiland has got David Oldham's back. He's actually the Republican member of the Tulsa County Election Board. And then we've got, oh, God, help me. What's his name?
I can't remember everybody else.
Oh, Charlie.
I should know them. It was Charlie. I want to say Shaw, but that's not it.
Anyway, it's Charlie.
But Charlie. Yeah.
And then we got, I don't know who the other young lady is. I think she's from the Congressional District 4.
I can only see Oldham in this picture. Oldham is the shining example of.
There we go. Well, anyway, they did a group picture 4 years ago, and I thought it was a nice picture. And I actually wrote an article on it. You can just type in Oldham on Sooner Politics, and it'll show you the picture. Oldham gave a great report on it. He told us about all the salacious offers from women he got. You know, if you change, no, it didn't happen. That actually would be a federal crime. That's a bribery.
There were lots of women who wrote, but there were no salacious offers.
I know.
Only reasonable offers.
No, everybody was signing the same form letters. There were about 2 or 3 form letters, mostly one. And everybody basically just signed that and sent it. That was what I got, snail and email.
Okay.
So,
but for kind of even back further for people who are like electoral college. So you say, so kind of all the way back to the beginning, you get elected to be a member of the electoral college by how
correct.
you get elected.
Here in Oklahoma, the Republican Party has a special convention. We call it a Congressional District Convention, and it's held only every 4 years, and it is specifically to elect the congressional representatives to the Electoral College and the congressional representatives for the RNC, or the Republican National Committee, and or National Convention, excuse me. And so those people then go to the RNC, they go to the convention, they represent this congressional district, the electors, they go off on today.
Yeah.
And
So,
their vote.
Tom, it's basically this is a reason why it pays to get involved in your political party organization. That in end of January, we're going to have an announcement about precinct caucus meetings. That's a meeting of just people in your neighborhood or little section of town. And in Tulsa, we've got Tulsa County has like 250 of them. Okay. So, and it just begins there, and you get to send delegations to county convention, district convention. We have 2 at-large electors as well. Now, Oldham, I'm going to segue into, there are a few states that do it a little bit differently.
Correct.
In some of them, literally the candidates running state their elector. So, like I remember Rick Santorum, I think was in Indiana. He had to list all of the electors that he would have if he won. So literally the candidate who gets the party nomination gets to pick his electors.
Really? How many states do it that way?
Because the 14th Amendment, now he could maybe make nominations, but the people elect the electors.
Right.
And so it like I said, every state does it differently, just so long as the people get to ultimately vote on the electors, because that's what the 14th Amendment.
Well, that's my point, is at the primaries, presidential primaries, see, you're voting for those electors.
Correct.
Within your party. And then that slate goes on the general election ballot if that candidate prevails and gets his party nominated.
So how many states do it that way?
Well, I know of a few, but it seems odd here. Like, I'm going to use Oldham as an example. Oldham, were you a Trump supporter in the primary 4 years ago?
No.
See,
no, I wasn't.
This example, and this is why they would leverage something like that, a state that went for Ted Cruz. And so it's probably Ted Cruz's supporters are more likely to be the state electors. So they're going to try to leverage, did you really want, this vulgar man named Donald Trump,
Well, that gets into what we call, or what is, wrongly phrased these days as
faithless,
unfaithful or faithless electors.
Yeah.
And nothing could be further from the truth. Remember, it was the electors who elect the president. And so you are basically sending, you hope, the best people from your area to represent you in that endeavor. And that's the key thing. So you want to have somebody who's faithful to what? To our principles, our American principles, our Constitution. That's what you want to send, because if you get somebody like Biden who says, I'm going to take away your Second Amendment, he doesn't say it that way, but he says, I'm going to take away your guns. I'm going to tax you to death on ammo, and I'm going to force you into more socialism, and I'm going to take away your right to do X, Y, and Z.
What kind of leader says, if I have a disagreement with my first mate, I will pretend to have an illness? That person needs to be sent.
Yeah.
Look how polite I am.
By the way, I want to get personal here. And Oldham,
okay.
Oldham was given a great position of trust.
Earned.
Typically the party votes for somebody not only that they know, but they've known a long time. and that
Generally.
is stable enough they can count on him. Now, if they'd ever had as many hours of conversation with Oldham as you and I have, they would say, man, he's got some ideas that are out there. That's not why they elected him.
Yeah, they didn't know me enough.
Oldham has a unique knack of getting along with people most of the time, right, Tom?
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not
but
people.
he's a likable guy. He's got good social skills.
Yeah.
This is politics, just like for a candidate. Oldham had to run for this office.
Sure.
And people had to have confidence in him. I mean, I've got confidence in
Well,
him.
the thing is,
Yeah.
the real thing is that you need to be, this is why you need to be involved in the party, especially here in Oklahoma, is
Yeah.
because that's how you choose your electors. Now, of course, the U.S. Supreme Court has now basically said that we're just rubber stamps of,
Yeah.
you know, the vote. And it's so if
Mhm.
they can cheat on the vote, then you can't be faithless. You have
Mhm.
to stick to the vote if your state says so.
Yeah.
And like Texas leaves their electors free.
Yeah.
And whereas Oklahoma has a clause in the state statutes that you must vote according to the vote of the people. And
Yeah.
as though they didn't vote for an individual elector, they voted just for the candidate on the top. Well, if the candidate that I voted for had said the same thing that Joe Biden is saying now, I wouldn't have voted for him. Why? Because of the need to protect our law and our Constitution, right? Protect America.
Right, as I press the idea of representation, and I don't want you to go up there and make, I mean, I've often said, I don't need my representatives to go up there and do the right thing. I need you to go up there and represent me. However, to balance that, go up there and represent me, the people, that is, until they do something that's unconstitutional. And then you're like, don't represent that.
Well,
That's
yeah.
mob rule. That's
Right.
your democracy.
We're getting into something here, because if they're going to go after some elected official and say you're faithless unless you vote the way that
we want you to.
Yeah, right. The way we want you to. Well, what about all the taxes that get raised in the legislature, even though they promised they wouldn't? Well, that's a faithless elector. Faithless representative.
Nice point.
Well, and generally those things are being raised because of the unfaithfulness in creating illegal spending and violating their oaths of office. It all comes down to being a faithful person. I mean, if we were faithful and respected one another and treated one another with, equal, as good as we want to be treated, live the golden rule, we would have no problem.
And I'm just saying, just leave the party then, because you asked for the party nomination, and the party has an official document of principles called our platform. And if you're not going to be true to that, then take the name off. You're not a Republican. Run as an independent next time.
Well, this gets me back to I continue to ring the refrain question. I still don't understand how it is that a person running for office could put their hand on something like a Bible and pronounce that they're going to uphold the Constitution while campaigning against the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
How can you do it? You're immediately in violation of your oath the minute you are sworn in.
He will be day one, because he said day one he's gonna jack with guns.
Yeah.
He's going to swear. He's already sworn the oath how many times as a senator, and he's
he violated.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So of all the things that we talk about, and a lot of times I get pressed as the host, well, you guys complain a lot and lament and all this contrarian crap, but you never come up with a solution. One solution is we've got to fix, I think it's correct me, Oldham, 16th Amendment. Senators now run their own game in between the state and the federal government. They get to play their own little popularity game.
And that's
this is bull crap. The 17th Amendment needs to be fixed or whatever it is. This idea
needs to be
repealed by God. The 17th things. I keep wrecking with the ball.
12, which is the income tax.
Well, now you're being unreasonable. No, The 17th Amendment, the senators being able to play their own popularity game and not be beholden to the legislatures of each state means they don't represent anybody but themselves. The senators represent themselves. They don't represent any legislature or any representation of the people. They don't represent the state. They don't represent crap. All they do is a popularity contest. Okay. The system was, even though we can't go back in time and fix everything, I would say the main play of the game where the ball was fumbled mainly in modern history is the 17th Amendment. What do you think, Oldham?
Yeah, the 16th and 17th Amendments were signed within a couple of years of each other and, sent to the states within a couple of years of each other and ratified within a couple of years of each other.
Yeah.
And those two things have radically changed where we're going. It is not the end all be all, because ultimately just getting people to abide by their oath of office is the end all, and that's not happening.
Impossible.
So we do need to do more than that, but the states need a say at the federal level, and we don't have it anymore.
And we lost it with the 17th Amendment.
We lost that with the 17th Amendment. The entire point of senators was that they were to represent the state. The House of Representatives was to represent the people of the various states.
Right. Van, we got.
Well, I want to say, just to get out of that area, segue is that there was a rally Saturday called Stop the Steal at most state capitals, including in Oklahoma. Okay. I want to shout out a great commendation to our friend, Oklahoma's mayor, Brian Hobbs, mayor of Newkirk. Nice. He put together a rally there. And I tell you what, the speakers he had up there speaking, only someone like Brian Hobbs, a coalition builder, could do this. And
we had Hobbs on the show last year.
Yes, we did this summer.
First standing up for freedom in his area. Yeah.
And yes, during the shutdown, he made some strong points about, this ridiculousness of these health department and state laws and some of his fellow mayors. And I talked to him just yesterday. I said, look, I'm tough on elected officials. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. I'm going to hold y'all accountable. But when you do right, I'm going to, set you up as a good example the right way. So he had at this rally a number of people that probably wouldn't talk to each other if they weren't on that stage. And so I'm really, really pleased with what Brian Hobbs is doing, particularly making sure that the Trump revolution, the regaining, getting away from the Bushes, getting away from the old guard Republican Party, that was just so quick to sell us out and throw each other under the bus to kowtow to the media. Trump pretty much got us out of that bad habit, and I hope we don't go back into it. And so if you're a Trump supporter, please call your county Republican Party. If you can't get a hold of that, call the state Republican Party and say, hey, I want to be sure to be notified when my local precinct meetings are. We've got to keep the Republican Party solid. It's in a good place.
Not just a Republican Party, the public schools, the federally funded public schools has fallen flat on their face.
Yeah.
Everything Oldham is telling us about how the Electoral College works, how you have a faithful elector, how you get elected, how the system works in Oklahoma, how the system works of representation in all the other states. The public schools has absolutely dredged their faces along the cement and taught the children stone soup for the last 50 years.
Absolutely.
It is insane. Soviet bullcrap shoved down the children's face. I send good Crayola crayons and they mix them together with all the cheap crap that breaks. And my kid doesn't get the stuff I send. Okay. They put it in the big communist pile and they teach stone soup in public schools. This is insane. We should know. We should know in the public schools what Oldham is telling us tonight about the Electoral College, that it's not a unicorn. It's not a mythical thing. This isn't.
Well,
I don't care.
This is what the Trump agenda is: cleaning up education, fighting back against the 1619 crap with the 1776 truth. And we've got to make sure that Trump's legacy and his agenda are carried out, because it takes years to go down the line. He needed 8 years to really get this stuff done. He hardly dredged any of the swamp.
It's amazing what he was able to do in 4
Right, but
years.
we've got to keep it going, at least here in a state of conservatives like Oklahoma is. So,
which means we are going to be in the next 4 years. We're on their target list. The blue wave is coming to Oklahoma. Trust me. We showed no cracks, even though I had my anecdotal experience where a guy who did demolition for me in North Tulsa told me they found ballots in the trash in South Tulsa.
Right.
Okay, 71st and
we've had all sorts of problems here.
So it happens here, and we're still red as red. But guess what? They're coming to drain us. Look out.
Yeah. Yes, with federal edicts. Remember what they tried to do with this gender bathrooms and all this other crazy stuff? And it wasn't until Trump got in that he was able to roll that back. I mean, there's a lot of tyranny that happens under the term of executive order, where they just make policy because they're the president, they run the agencies.
It's a double-edged sword because there's a lot of fix that comes through executive order too. I mean, look at how it works.
Right. It's not legislation. Legislation goes through Congress and it's up for review by the judicial system.
So Oldham, and I don't want to start a whole brand new one, but maybe we'll get there one day. Line item veto, I would say, is not legislation either.
Well, I mean, it makes sense to have the president have a line item veto. Otherwise,
why? What is line item? What is the worth of all of the discussion if you can have line item veto?
Well, because then he can say, I accepted all but this. This is unconstitutional.
Well, then all that debate on the language was worthless. There's no reason to have all that debate on the language because they could tear apart the. What I understand is the package deal is the Constitution and the first 10 amendments are ratified together. If you could have line item veto, you say, I like everything but the Second Amendment.
Oh, no. He doesn't get a veto of the Constitution.
I'm saying the concept philosophically of line item veto, it disregards all of the debate of the words passed there's no reason to pass 100 words of debate agreed upon to have one guy say, I don't like this. What the hell did you debate for?
Well, actually, I love the veto. I love the fact that there is a veto. It would be nice if you
not just a simple veto, a line item veto is my problem.
Well,
I get the veto.
He can do the same thing right now. He can say, I like all of this except for, because remember the constitutional language is that he shall return to Congress his reasons for vetoing. And so he can say, take out this line and I'll approve it. And they can go back and take it out.
So what happened this last year, because we shut down the legislature for about a month, and then we had to hurry up and get things through because constitutionally we've got adjourned by basically Memorial Weekend, right?
Yeah.
And so they threw a whole bunch of things into omnibus bills because the process takes time. On medical marijuana, for instance, they had screwed up so badly the year before that the health department said, we're going to delay implementing this because we're hearing from the legislature that you think this was a mistake and you don't want us to. And so we'll slow walk it, right? And then the governor vetoed the whole medical marijuana omnibus, much of which was repealing bad laws. And it was because of just one clause. And, the governor said, no, we can't have that. I can't tolerate that. So he vetoes the whole thing. And they run out the clock.
Right.
That's
the thing is that's where a line item veto is great. Because then the governor, you can hold the governor accountable for not getting rid of other bad things and just vetoing good stuff that he has no business.
The only caveat to that would be if you put in language that it's not a severable bill. that you had enough support if people were willing to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. But
Well,
again, my philosophical purity, doesn't necessarily always play out in a rule of law. So,
Life's that way.
well,
yeah.
Well, the thing is that it would be nice to see something that's a little more surgical than just no, and then they run out the clock, because they present
Yeah.
it to him so late, and then they put the poison pill in it, and that's what they call it. It's a poison pill. It's to
Yeah.
force the
And,
veto because it's
you know,
illegal.
I want to commend John Eccles, the floor leader, because he's been pretty much the architect of what's been going on the last 3-4 years. And John now tells the lawmakers, he says, look, we want to finish a week before the constitutional deadline. And then just to be pro forma for the next week, because we want to give the governor his 5 days to either sign it or it becomes law. But if he vetoes it, we want that veto has to come before that 5 p.m. Friday before Memorial Day, because then they can come back without a special session and override him. Now they overrode him last year a lot. The entire budget for this fiscal year was overridden. They pushed it over his objections. So, yeah. So, got some tidbits before we get out of here.
Okay.
All right. You're going to see a bunch of town hall meetings the next few weeks around the state. It's about redistricting. Okay. Now, as you know, the size, everybody's votes got to be equal here in representative form of government, are pretty close to it. And so every legislator in the state legislature, every congressman has to represent roughly an equal amount of people in order for to meet the 14th Amendment equal protection clause, right? Okay. So every 10 years they do a census and then they redraw the lines. Today, there was a very good report. I wrote an article on it this morning where our legislature has contracted with a software company who's developed a mapping system. It's very nice, very 3D, where they basically had electoral groups, by zones and how many voters are in there and stuff, and to where you can move around. They said, for instance, State Senate District 27, which is like 9 counties in the Panhandle. They said, well, because their population shrank, we got to add part of a 10th or 11th county to that seat. So these are the adjustments that you have to have. And then you have to do it in a way that doesn't get taken to court, like what happened 10 years ago for Texas. Is a big knockdown drag out, because this is an opportunity for political parties to manipulate and extend and maximize their impact in the legislature.
Right.
So that's what's going on Thursday night, 3 nights from now, or actually Wednesday night down in McAllister is going to be one of the first meetings at the Stipe Center of all places. But anyway, so
go call it that.
Yeah,
they
the
still call it
Center.
that.
I thought I was a comedian.
Yeah. So,
for those who don't know, Gene Stipe, who the building is named for, was one of the most crooked county commissioners in the state of Oklahoma.
State senators.
And state senator, right? Because
for 45 years he was a senator.
Okay.
Inhofe's been around longer than that.
Yeah. Well, but he served several different offices.
Well, I'm just taking.
And he wasn't convicted of numerous crimes.
Oh yeah, he died in a mental health facility of a federal prison, is my understanding, or state. I don't know.
You'd hope for a better mental health facility.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's that story, and then the medical marijuana reforms. There's going to be some things happening here. Here's the number, guys. 10% of the Oklahoma population has a medical marijuana card that says, I'm a patient, a doctor is approved for me to have marijuana. 10%.
So I just saw a thing about somebody was pulled over and arrested for having pot in their car, just locally. And it was, I think it happened yesterday.
You mean local?
And so when is when is the marijuana crowd gonna say, okay, enough is enough of these
Okay.
ridiculous of the OMMA and the health department and sever themselves from them?
For the first time today, and I think it came out of Fetgatter's mouth, but Eccles was right there next to him, and those two guys are really tight on marijuana policy. And I think it was Fetgatter said he would envisioned a recreational program and a medical program being separated out.
Because one's a party and one's trying to help you with your problems.
So he said that magic word, recreational.
Yeah, but if he's separating it out, he's still staying in government.
He is. What they're trying to do, and a bunch of doctors who are there and stuff, they would like to see the cost of medicinal marijuana drop down. Maybe we take the 15% tax or so off of it, 16% in a lot of places, and we make it truly medicine tax exempt like pharmaceutical meds. But then you compensate for that with recreational being confiscatory taxation. That's how they think. That's not what I'm advocating.
When they say recreational, I mean, are you like required to have fun?
I know. I call it casual use. Recreational sounds more.
I wouldn't have fun on this stuff.
Yeah, I was saying.
Look, marijuana needs to be regulated like garden tomatoes. That's it.
Well, it needs to be regulated like socialism. That is, I'm in charge and I'll ration it.
Yeah. But really, to me, and I can't find a reasonable doctor to tell me that marijuana is more dangerous.
You use reasonable. You use the word reasonable more than most people.
You have to anymore. I got to qualify. There's some nut jobs out there.
The next time your daughter tries to date, you're like, well, is he reasonable?
There's the health department that has doctors. That's why you got to qualify your terms. But,
right.
Yeah, but really, it's it should be like tomatoes, because I mean, really, it's not as dangerous as tobacco or beer even.
If you haven't indulged, do you straight white guys know who Cat Williams is?
Cat Williams, no.
Who?
Look at these guys. Oh, look at them struggle. Look at them struggle.
We're wearing white shirts.
Cat Williams is a black
Williams.
Cat Williams.
Yes.
Of course you do now. Yes.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, it's me. I know. I'm just trying to play with you. Cat Williams, he does a whole thing about, it's a weed. It grows, you don't have to do. He's like all the other drugs, you got to process them and do stuff to it. All you do is like, look, I accidentally burned this stuff and wow, am I happy? Cat Williams is funny, but he's vulgar, but he's funny. Oh gosh. Yeah. But I mean, like you're saying with the tomato, it's a weed. You don't have to cocaine. You got to work it,
Well, again, remember regulation, regulation can't be deprivation. And so if they're depriving, then they are not legal. And so I've called it prohibition in the past, but I'm calling it deprivation because of the Fifth Amendment. The 5th, 14th, and Oklahoma's Constitution uses that word, deprivation.
Yeah. Now, anybody can go to okhouse.gov and pull up the video of the interim, the OMMA director. But, in the name of protecting the health of patients, they've got just this ridiculous bunch of tests they have to run on all this stuff. But yet they aren't testing the tomatoes at the grocery store, and people consume them.
Correct.
So pesticides
and there may be good cause for it, but it's not government's place until it actually comes down and happens.
Well, and it's arbitrary, which makes it lawless. There's no standard canon of how they're doing anything. It's popular opinion. All it is populism. They're just whatever's popular today, and they're running with it.
Well, and if I want to smoke Roundup, that's my right.
Right.
Yeah. And so what they did, this got a lot of criticism. Is
Big Lou has drug problems too.
the legislature set it up with the health department to hire somebody to be in charge of the laboratories that would be the authority of testing all this stuff. But they only got one, and they gave them permission to charge whatever amount, I don't know what it was, all the product. And so they set them up with a monopoly.
Right.
This is a form of fiscal fascism, as Mussolini would call it, corporatism, where the government doesn't do it. They just give somebody a monopoly, kind of like PSO and O&G have monopolies.
Kind of like GT Bynum and the Zoo and the BOK and Gilcrease and all the other fascist municipal corporate combinations of government and private philanthropic bullcrap.
Yeah,
I love hearing David talk like this about 788. And the outcome from 788, because that's what it is. If they'd done it right, we'd just be free. Yeah. And that's the thing. We all just need to be free, and all the stuff goes away. It takes care of itself.
Well, I mean, but the problem is they sell us this socialism bullcrap. It's co-ownership. I mean, socialism's not fascism except for at the root. And so GT Bynum, all the way back in 2016, when I ran against him, he was pushing the Vision 2025 package, which will Tulsa's city sales tax is going up by 26% coming this summer. And that's GT Bynum raised your taxes. You don't even know it yet. Okay. And so they're pushing all this crap. He pushed all this fascistic conglomeration of private public bullcrap for the BOK, which we couldn't use freely for the president of the United States, and the Gilcrease Museum and the Philbrook and everything. We can't use any of that co-owned crap right now. And I want my money back. I didn't want my temporary penny to go back to being non-temporary to a regular thing. And now I can't use any of these long-term, the Gathering Place, the BOK, Gilcrease, none of this crap that he pushed for a 15-year plan. 15-year plan. And then what they're going to say, we couldn't see the pandemic coming. Everybody saw the pandemic coming. Everybody said, here comes a pandemic. Bill Gates included. Fauci included. Everybody knew the pandemic was coming, but GT Bynum and the ilk, they push for 15-year plans. You don't even know if you can get down your road in 15 years. All right, I'm done.
Listen, C.S. Lewis said it well. One of the greatest tyrannies is the moral busybody, because they affirm their own actions because they believe they're doing it for your best interest. They're controlling you. And this is what our state health department is. They created their own motto, their own mandate, call it, it is our job to protect the health of Oklahoma. That leads a lot of people I know to be motivated to go down there, find that motto on whatever wall it is or in the entry, and tear that thing down and have a bonfire out on the street. But that still wouldn't stop them, because it's in their hearts. It's not on the wall.
How do they consider rationing our prepaid co-owned health system? Their idea of protecting us is to immediately ration our co-owned prepaid health system.
And make sure that they get shots first in round one.
And masks too. Yeah. And don't forget they're heroes, David. They're heroes.
They're frontline.
Not you, they are.
Yep. Hey, I'm with the frontline waitresses and retail clerks.
I'm with the frontline.
Frontline.
I mean, how the hell are we going to get these kids? Look, we do not have time to get into my story about Oklahoma Trauma Informed Care Task Force. Did you know we have an it's a task force, and it's called the Oklahoma Trauma Informed Care Task Force. So not only are they trauma informed, they care too. And they're in Oklahoma, and they're a task force, and they created a strategy to rebuild social supports. What is a social support? And they're going to rebuild it through collaboration to address ACEs. Do you boy? And we're not going to get into this tonight because we're out of time, but I'm going to get into it. ACE. You know what an ACE is? Adverse childhood experiences. I know you guys didn't have any.
Oh no.
You didn't ever have any because you guys are white. You guys
So
are white.
Is this the Roseanne Barr narrative of my parents abused me and that's
Oh my
why I
God!
behave like
Here's
I
what
do?
here the ultimately the big thing here is. We'll do this next week because I can't let it go. It's a December story, but the punchline at the end says from this is a gal, Annette Whisk Jacoby is the director of Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth.
Oh, God.
And she says,
Mute.
youth,
The Utes.
the youth.
Mute.
It's got a TH on the end. I pronounce it youth. And she says, we have got to normalize the idea that we all are part of raising all children. And to that, with 5 children, I say, bull crap. I will raise my children and you keep your effing hands off of them. I will only raise only my children. We are not all raising all children.
I see. I'm with Joe Pesci, cousin Vinny. They're the Utes.
Yeah. The Ute. Okay, fine.
The
You
Utes.
call them what you want. I'll raise mine. You raise yours. The problem with Jacoby is we're all going to raise all our children. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what this thing is, adverse childhood experiences, which is promoted and funded through what they call a nonprofit.
Yeah,
and next year I'm going to
Foundation.
Get out of here.
Village.
I've got a list of stories I'm going to bring up when I put this together about nonprofit. It's scandal. It's scandal up one side and down there. The care. There's the care nonprofit, the CAIRE. Okay, they are a nonprofit that fully supported Greg Robinson in his run for Tulsa mayor, and yet they're a nonprofit. And if you listen to him on the interview with the care nonprofit, everything is totally 100% supportive of Greg Robinson until she says, "Oh, and you know what? We're a nonprofit, so we can't officially support you, but go." It's like, it's 100% bull crap.
Aren't nonprofits all Christian like my church is?
Well, sure they are. And the people have said, if you're going to get rid of nonprofit 501c3 status, then you're going to have to take away the church's stuff. I said, okay, fine. Churches will be fine. That's fine.
They do next week, folks. Tom's going to
take
get
away
into
all this crap. But here it is. Before it gets past its expiration date, Governor Kevin Stitt declared December as Oklahoma Nonprofit Month. And this is where, if you think I'm just a partisan, I hate the governor for this because I don't like nonprofits. But he said yes, sir.
The subtext is, if you thought Oldham was out there, stay tuned next week. Tom's
You
going
haven't
to
seen
get into
anything. Hey, I live in the deep end. I know when people swim by. Wednesday, December 2nd. This is from News on 6. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt declared the month of December Oklahoma Nonprofit Month on Tuesday, December 1st. The announcement came on a Giving Tuesday. Oh, a day internationally recognized as the Day of Giving Back.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a capitalist, the minute you walked out with your product, we're even. I don't owe you anything. There's no giving. I don't have to give any. We're giving back. What do you mean give back? Put your shirt on and cover your back fat. That's giving back. But Governor Stitt.
Bynum told the governor to do that. Use shaming. It works. Just ask Bynum.
Keep your kids out of the stormwater. Governor Stitt tweeted a thank you to Oklahoma's nonprofits that serve various communities across the state, including Greg Robinson.
Yeah.
Including Greg Robinson,
who got a foundation.
He, as far as I understand, he's welcome to come back on the show again. I mean, welcome as I can make it. And the thing is like, do you support BLM, the Marxists? If you support BLM, the Marxists, CARE, the nonprofit, help get Greg Robinson partially almost. Look, he's in as far as I'm concerned. G and GT stands for Greg Robinson. CARE, the nonprofit, was totally supportive of him, which is in violation of their 501c3 nonprofit status. They cannot support a candidate.
No, that's CAIR, CAIR.
CAIRE. Yeah,
Right. That's a Muslim group.
that's correct.
No, CAIR is the Muslim group. CAIRE is somebody else.
CAIR. They interviewed Greg Robinson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
advance
See,
of the
well, I
main-
was going to say, because there used to be a very prominent national nonprofit called CARE back in the 70s.
Oldham's correct, not the E. It's CAIR.
Okay.
It's the Muslim Black Lives Matter nonprofit organization here in Oklahoma. They were very friendly, and what I would say is that I dare you to find any part of the interview with CARE that wasn't supportive of Greg Robinson, except for the part where they said, "Oh yeah, we got to make sure we say we're not, because otherwise we'll be in violation." Because they knew they were in violation. Just go look at the interview. The governor encouraged people to donate time and money or resources. At Governor Stitt said on Twitter, "I'm proud to declare December Oklahoma Nonprofit Month in honor of the organizations that selflessly," and I call that bullcrap, that he says is selflessly serve the most vulnerable populations in our state. Consider supporting your favorite nonprofit today, which would be me. Send me your money because I don't make a dime.
Got to ask Oldham, did things for your Thursday night Tulsa 912 meeting, that all resolved fine, or did you get a stop?
Oh yeah, nobody came by. I mean, I didn't have any fun because I was looking forward. I had my camera out. I was looking forward to a 4th and 5th Amendment health department audit that I would be able to put up on YouTube.
Well,
and
let's see, that's it. They
stuff
put
like
Oldham
that.
in the parking lot, scared them away.
Scared everybody away.
Yeah,
Broad shoulders and stuff. Yeah.
bummer. It's a bummer.
Yeah.
I dressed up. I had an FBI hat and everything.
No, they said that's the guy who picketed outside of the New Jersey governor's residence.
Yeah,
That's
Fat Gatter warned us about that guy. Run.
All right, guys.
Gentlemen, we're going to get into that other story I had about the ACE and the poor children next year. Year. Holy crap.
Oh, Shop Talk.
There, we're almost there, Tom.
We got one more show next Monday, right? The 21st, and then we're going to take the holiday week off, right?
21st. Yeah, we ought to do a best of on the 28th. I'll roll a best of or something.
Good.
Gentlemen, once again, as always, I appreciate both you guys showing. David Vann, expert Oklahoma State government advocate for mental health concerns, creator, editor of Sooner Politics. And you can find him at soonerpolitics.org. David Oldham, founder of Constitutional Grounds organization, teaching and promoting liberty and a restoration of constitutional governance. Find him at constitutionalgrounds.com. Also me, Verbal Viking, Tommy McKay, your fine host, 3D Politics, every Monday night at 7-ish. We'll catch you guys next week. We'll take you guys out. All right. There goes Oldham. There goes Van. And I'll see you guys next time.